The combine's roar drowned out everything but the blood pounding in my ears as Daniel's calloused hand slammed into my chest, shoving me backward into the knee-high wheat. "You think you know better than me? Boy, this ain't no fairy tale farm. You're gonna get us both killed." His voice cracked like thunder over the Kansas plains, eyes wild with that mix of fury and something deeper, unspoken, that I'd been pretending not to notice for months. I hit the ground hard, stalks snapping under me like brittle bones, and in that split second, as the dust settled and his shadow loomed, I realized the harvest we'd been chasing wasn't just golden waves. It was us unraveling. I grew up on the edge of this godforsaken prairie, where the sky swallows you whole and the wind whispers secrets through the wheat like it's got nothing better to do. Alexander Hayes, that's me, 22 and already feeling like a relic, had been back on the family farm for 6 months when it all went to hell. Dad's heart gave out behind the wheel of the old Ford last winter. Mom followed him into the ground by spring, cancer chewing her up from the inside like it had a personal grudge. Left me with nothing but a creaky 2-story house, a barn full of ghosts, and Daniel, my uncle, who showed up from Wichita like some reluctant sheriff in a John Steinbeck novel. Daniel was Dad's younger brother, 47 going on ancient, with the kind of rugged hands that could cradle a newborn calf or snap a fence post in half without breaking a sweat. He'd been married once, to a sweet schoolteacher named Laura who up and left him a decade ago for accountant in Topeka, said the farm life was suffocating her dreams, whatever the hell that meant. Since then, Daniel had armored himself in flannel and denial, straight as the Platte River and twice as unyielding. He ran an auto shop in the city, fixed transmissions for soccer moms and semis alike. But when the call came about the funeral, he packed a duffel and drove out, muttering about family duty and can't let the place go to seed. We didn't talk much at first. Mornings started at dawn with black coffee in chipped mugs on the sagging porch, the air thick with the scent of dew-kissed earth and regret. Boys got your father's fire, but none of his sense. He'd grumble to the horizon, as if I weren't sitting right there. I'd nod, choke down the bitterness, and head to the fields. The wheat was our lifeline that summer, acres of it swaying like a golden sea, promising a payout that could keep the bank off our backs. But every swing of the scythe, every rev of the combine, felt like a countdown to something I couldn't name. Started small, the way these things do in places where the nearest town's a 30-minute drive and the radio only picks up country stations crooning about lost loves. One evening, after a 12-hour day baling hay that left us both sweat-soaked and silent, Daniel cracked open a couple of Millers on the tailgate of his truck. The sun dipped low, painting the silos in fire, and for the first time, he asked about me, not the farm, not the will, but me. "You got a girl in Lawrence? Or you still chasing those college skirts?" His laugh was rough, like gravel under tires, but his eyes lingered a beat too long. I swallowed hard, the beer going flat on my tongue. College had been a blur of keg parties and quiet hookups in dorm shadows, guys who smelled like Axe body spray and desperation. I'd learned early to bury that part of myself deep, like Dad burying the harvest in silos come fall. "Nah, Uncle Dan. No one's caught my eye. I tasted like ash, but it kept the peace." He clapped my shoulder, hard, brotherly, and that touch lingered like a brand, warm through my thin tee. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of sweat and soil. We'd rise before the roosters, plow the back 40, mend fences that the coyotes tore through like they were made of tissue. Daniel taught me the farm's language, how to read the clouds for rain that never came, how to spot blight in the stalks before it spread like gossip in a small town. At night, we'd collapse on the living room couch, the TV flickering with reruns of Gunsmoke, his arm slung casual over the backrest, inches from my neck. I'd steal glances at the lines etched around his eyes, the silver threading his chest hair where his shirt gaped open. He was salt of the earth straight, the kind of man who'd tip his cap at church and vote Republican without a second thought. But in those quiet hours, with the crickets chorusing outside, I wondered what it'd be like if the world bent just a little. The push came on a scorcher in late July, the kind of heat that makes the horizon shimmer like a mirage. We'd been arguing all morning. Stupid shit. Really. The combine's auger was jammed again, we clogging it like a bad artery, and I'd suggested rerouting the conveyor belt, a trick I'd picked up from a YouTube video during those long, lonely winters. Daniel, elbow deep in grease, exploded. God damn it. Alex, you think some internet wizardry's gonna save this place? We've been cutting wheat since before you were a wet dream. This is my farm now, I fired back, heat of the moment matching the sun. Your farm? Dad left it to me. Dan. You're just the hired help with a beer gut. The words hung there, venomous, and before I could blink, his palm connected with my chest. Not a slap, not a punch, just a shove, firm and final, sending me sprawling into the wheat. Stalks whipped my face, dirt filled my mouth, and for a heartbeat, the world tilted. He stood over me, chest heaving, face a mask of regret twisting into something rawer. Fear? Desire? The line blurred in the haze. I scrambled up, brushing off the grit, my heart hammering not from the fall but from the electricity crackling between us. What the hell? Daniel? My voice was steady, but inside, I was unraveling. He didn't apologize, just turned away, muttering about checking the irrigation lines. That night, over a dinner of canned chili heated on the stove, the silence stretched like the fields outside. I wanted to scream, to grab him by the collar and demand what that push meant. Instead, I went to bed with the ghost of his handprint burning on my skin. The days after were a tightrope. We'd work side by side, words clipped, but the air hummed with unspoken accusations. I caught him watching me, when I bent to tie my boot, when I stripped off my shirt to hose down in the yard after a dust storm. Once, as thunder rumbled distant, he handed me a wrench without a word, our fingers brushing, and the jolt shot straight to my core. I was falling, hard and hopeless, into the one man who could destroy me without even knowing why. By August, the wheat heads bowed heavy, ready for the blade. Harvest season loomed like a storm front, promising fortune or famine. Daniel softened a fraction, sharing stories over whiskey by the fire pit, tales of boyhood pranks with Dad. The night Laura left with nothing but a note on the fridge. Love's a bitch, kid, he'd say, staring into the flames. Hits you when you're not looking, then kicks you while you're down. I'd nod, throat tight, wondering if he saw the irony. One midnight, insomnia chasing me like a shadow, I found him in the barn, silhouetted against the moonlight filtering through the slats. He was mending a saddle, hands steady, but his shoulders sagged under an invisible weight. Can't sleep? I asked, leaning in the doorway. He glanced up, eyes shadowed. Ghosts? Alex. Always the damn ghosts. We talked then, really talked for the first time. About loss. About the ache of empty beds and unanswered prayers. I confessed my fears about the farm slipping away, about being alone in a world that chewed up dreamers. He listened, really listened, and when he pulled me into a hug, rough, enveloping, smelling of hay and honest sweat, I melted against him, just for a second, before pulling back like I'd been burned. That was the night the dam cracked. As I lay in bed later, the ceiling fan whirring lazy circles, I admitted it to myself. I loved him. Not like family, not like the brother he'd become. Deeper, forbidden, a fire that could raise the fields to ash. And Daniel? Straight as they come, or so he said. But in the quiet of the prairie night, doubts crept in like foxes. His lingering touches, the way his voice softened on my name. Was it possible, or was I just a fool, harvesting illusions from the wind? Harvest hit like a freight train, relentless and unforgiving. The combines growled to life at first light, chewing through the golden sea acre by acre. Daniel and I tag-teamed the machines, me on the header, him in the cab, barking coordinates over the crackling radio like a general in some dusty war. Sweat poured rivers down our backs, mixing with chaff that itched like 1,000 tiny regrets. By noon, we'd pause under the lone cottonwood by the creek, gulping water from dented thermoses, shirts plastered translucent against skin baked bronze by the sun. It was during one of those breaks that the world shifted again. I'd stripped to the waist, splashing creek water over my head, when Daniel's voice cut through the trickle. Christ, Alex, you're built like your old man was at your age. Solid. There was no mockery, just a quiet admiration that hung heavy as the humidity. I turned, water dripping from my lashes, and caught him staring, not at my face, but lower, tracing the lines of my torso with something like hunger masked as habit. Our eyes locked, and for a pulse, the creek's murmur was the only sound. Then he coughed, looked away, muttering about grain yields. That look haunted me through the afternoon's grind. By dusk, as we unloaded the day's take into the silo, exhaustion clawed deep. Daniel clapped my back, harder than necessary, and said, "Good work today, kid. Couldn't do this without you." His hand lingered, thumb brushing my spine, and I swear the air crackled. I mumbled thanks, heart slamming, and bolted for the house like a spooked colt. The farmhouse felt smaller that night, walls closing in with the weight of what wasn't said. I showered hot and hurried, emerging in boxers and a tank, only to find Daniel at the kitchen table, nursing a bud, shirt unbuttoned to his navel. "Join me?" he asked, sliding a bottle my way. We talked crops and weather, skirting the edges of everything real, until the alcohol loosened his tongue. "Laura," she said I was too closed off. Like a damn book with the pages glued shut. He laughed, bitter. Maybe she was right. I leaned in, emboldened by the buzz. "You're not closed off, Dan. You're guarded. Like the wheat, tough on the outside, but there's life pulsing underneath. Stupid poetry, farm boy style, but it landed." His gaze sharpened, searching mine, and for a reckless moment, I thought he'd lean across the table, bridge the gap with lips that tasted of malt and earth. Instead, he stood abruptly, chair scraping like an accusation. "Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." He was gone before I could breathe, leaving me with a half-empty bottle and a chest full of what-ifs. The next week blurred in a haze of machinery and monotony, but the tension coiled tighter. Small-town gossip filtered in via the co-op radio Old Mrs. Harlan wondering if we'd gone queer for company out there alone, her voice crackling with that Midwestern mix of concern and cruelty. Daniel overheard, smashed the radio with a wrench, cursing under his breath. "Small-minded fools," he growled, but his eyes flicked to me, apologetic. I shrugged it off, but inside, it festered, like I'd marked him with my silence, my stares. Then came the storm. Not the gentle rain we prayed for, but a monster rolling in from the west, skies bruising black as it swallowed the sun. We raced the combines to the barn, lightning forking like accusations, thunder shaking the ground. Safe inside, soaked and shivering, we laughed it off at first. Manic, relieved giggles that echoed off the rafters. Daniel peeled off his dripping shirt, tossing it over a stall door, and I followed suit, the air between us thick as the ozone scent. "Close one," he said, toweling his hair, muscles rippling under skin scarred from a lifetime of labor. I nodded, throat dry, and that's when it happened. A crack of thunder so close it rattled the beams, and in the flash of light, he stepped forward, pulling me into his chest. "You okay?" His voice was gravel, arms iron bands around me, heartbeat syncing with mine through the thin barrier of wet denim. "Yeah," I whispered, face buried in the crook of his neck, inhaling the storm on his skin, rain, sweat, man. We stayed like that, frozen, until the rain sheeted down outside, drowning the world. When he pulled back, his hands framed my face, thumbs rough against my jaw. "Alex," the word was a plea, prayer, and I rose on tiptoes, closing the distance. Our kiss was clumsy, desperate, teeth clashing, breaths mingling in a gasp. His stubble scraped my chin, hands roaming my back like he was mapping uncharted land. For those endless seconds, the barn faded, the storm irrelevant. There was only Daniel, unraveling with me. Then reality crashed in. He jerked back, eyes wide with horror. "Jesus, what the? No. This ain't. I ain't." He stumbled away, grabbing his shirt like armor, fleeing into the downpour without another word. I sank to the hay-strewn floor, the taste of him lingering like sin. What had I done? Pushed too far, harvested a forbidden crop that would wither us both. The storm raged on, mirroring the one inside, and I wondered if dawn would bring forgiveness or the end. Morning broke gray and sodden, fields battered but standing. Daniel was already at the breakfast table when I dragged myself down, his face a stone mask over bruised shadows. "Last night," he started, voice flat. "Forget it." I cut in, pouring coffee with hands that shook. Heat of the moment. Storm fever, lie after lie, building walls higher than the silo. He nodded, relief flickering, but it died quick. "Yeah. Good. 'Cause that shit, it don't fly here. Not with family. Not with me." The words sliced deep, but I swallowed the blood, forcing a grin. "Water under the bridge. Uncle Dan." We threw ourselves into work, the rhythm a fragile truce. But the kiss haunted every glance, every accidental brush of arms. Daniel pulled away more, sleeping in the guest room, taking solo runs to town for parts. I buried it in labor, swinging the scythe until my arms screamed, pretending the ache in my chest was just muscle strain. 2 weeks later, betrayal bloomed like blight. I overheard him on the phone in the barn, voice low and laced with whiskey. Yeah, Harlan, it's true the kid's got tendencies. Caught him looking at me funny. Hell, we even. Nah, forget it. Just keep an eye out. Don't want no trouble. Laughter, cruel and distant, echoed as he hung up. My blood ran cold. He twisted it, made me the villain in his confession to the town's biggest gossip. By evening, whispers would spread like wildfire through the co-op, branding me the farm's dirty secret. I confronted him at dusk, the combine idling forgotten behind us. You told Harlan? About us? My voice cracked, fists clenched at my sides. He didn't flinch, just met my gaze with steel. Had to clear the air. Alex. Folks talk. And after that kiss, Christ, panicked. I'm straight, boy. Always have been. This, he gestured between us, dismissive. Mistake. Big one. The shove from July echoed in my bones. But this was worse, a verbal push into the abyss. Mistake? You kissed me back. Dan. You held me. Tears burned hot. But I blinked them back. Midwestern pride kicking in. His face crumpled. Just for a flash guilt. Maybe longing before hardening again. I was drunk on adrenaline. Doesn't make me a fag. The slur landed like a slap. Ugly and final. He turned away, firing up the combine with a roar that drowned my sob. That night, alone in the house that suddenly felt like a tomb, I packed a bag. Lawrence was calling old buddies, a bartending gig, escape. But as I zipped the duffel, the door creaked open. Daniel stood there, drenched from the fields, eyes red-rimmed. Don't go, he whispered, voice breaking the silence like glass. Please, I froze, heart a war drum. Was this redemption, or just another twist in the knife? The air between us crackled, heavier than the summer humidity clinging to the curtains. Daniel's plea hung there, raw and ragged, his broad frame filling the doorway like a barrier I both craved and cursed. Rain pattered on the tin roof, a soft counterpoint to the storm brewing in his eyes, turmoil I recognized because it mirrored my own. I'd zipped that bag with finality, every fiber screaming to run, but one word from him, and my resolve frayed like old baling twine. Why? I demanded, voice steadier than I felt. You just called me a mistake. Told the whole damn town I'm some kind of freak. What changes now? Dan, you gonna wake up tomorrow and decide you're not so straight after all? He stepped inside, closing the door with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Water pooled at his boots, but he didn't move, just stood there dripping regret. I don't know, Alex. God help me, I don't. But hearing you pack, it gutted me, like losing your dad all over again. Worse, his hands flexed at his sides, as if fighting the urge to reach out. That night in the barn, it scared the shit out of me. Not cause of you. Cause of what it woke up. I sank onto the bed, bag forgotten at my feet. Woke up? Talk straight. Uncle. No more bullshit. He crossed the room in 2 strides, dropping to his knees before me, vulnerable in a way that twisted my heart. The man who'd wrestled steers and stared down blizzards, on his knees, head bowed. I've been lying to myself since Laura left. Nights alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering why nothing felt right. Then you show up, all fire and fight, and hell, Alex, You make me feel seen. Not as the straight arrow mechanic. Not as your uncle. As me. Flawed and fucked up. Tears tracked down his weathered cheeks. And I couldn't breathe. This was confession. Pure and painful. The kind that reshapes souls. I cupped his face, thumbs wiping salt from stubble, and pulled him up until our foreheads touched. Dan. I'm scared too. Of this. Of us. But running won't fix it. Our lips met again. Slower this time, no storm to blame, no shadows to hide in. It was deliberate, a dam breaking in tandem. His hands trembled as they slid under my tank, mapping ribs and scars from childhood falls off the hayloft. I tasted whiskey and want on his tongue, felt the hard plane of his chest against mine. We tumbled back onto the bed, clothes shedding like old skin, bodies aligning in a dance we'd both denied for too long. It wasn't fireworks or poetry, just two men, starved for touch, learning each other in the dim lamplight. Daniel's calluses rasped gentle over my hips, his breath's ragged confessions against my neck. Tell me if it's too much, he murmured, voice thick with awe, and I arched into him, whispering, more. In that room, with the rain as witness, we harvested something sacred, trust, tangled limbs, the quiet miracle of acceptance. Dawn crept in rosy-fingered, finding us tangled in sheets, his arm heavy across my waist. Panic flickered in his eyes when he woke, but I kissed it away, murmuring, one day at a time, Dan. We figure it out. He nodded, pulling me closer, and for the first time, the farm felt like home again. But paradise on the prairie is fleeting. Harvest wrapped mid-September, silos groaning full, payout wired to the bank just shy of foreclosure. We celebrated with a bonfire in the back pasture, flames leaping high as our secrets. Daniel's hand found mine in the shadows, fingers lacing tight, a promise, anchor. This. It's real, right? He asked, voice barely above the crackle. Real as the dirt under our nails, I replied, and meant it. Nights blurred into a rhythm of stolen intimacies, lazy mornings in the loft, his head on my chest, dusk rides on the ATV, pulling over to kiss under star-swollen skies. He opened up more. Stories of a high school crush on the quarterback he'd buried deep, the loneliness that Laura's leaving unearthed. I shared my own ghosts. The shame of coming out to a dorm roommate who ghosted me overnight, the fear of never belonging. Yet doubt gnawed at the edges. Town whispers grew to murmurs, Harlan's wife side eyeing us at the feed store, the pastor's sermon on unnatural affections hitting too close. Daniel tensed, his straight man armor cracking under the strain. What if they find out? He'd mutter after, pacing the kitchen while I cooked venison stew. This place is all I got. All we got. I pull him down, ground him with touches that said we're enough. But the fault lines widened. One crisp October afternoon, as we mended the north fence, a truck rumbled up the drive, black Ford, dust-caked, with Topeka plates. Laura. She'd heard about the farm's windfall, come sniffing around for a slice, or maybe reconciliation. Daniel's face drained of color as she stepped out, blonde hair pulled back, looking every bit the ghost who'd haunted him. Dan, she said, voice honey over gravel, hugging him stiff. Her eyes flicked to me, praising. Alexander, right? You've grown into quite the man. The words dripped false warmth, But Daniel extricated himself quick, mumbling introductions. We sat on the porch, awkward as a root canal, her laughter forced over iced tea. "Heard you've been holding down the fort," she said to me, but her gaze bored into Daniel. "Missed this place. Us." By evening, as she lingered too long, touching his arm, jealousy coiled cold in my gut. Was this the life he'd craved, straight, simple, with a woman on his arm? She left at twilight, tires spitting gravel, but the damage lingered. Daniel withdrew, burying in work, avoiding my eyes. "She's just an old friend," he insisted when I pressed, but his voice rang hollow. Nights grew cooler, our bed colder. He'd roll away, claiming aches from the cold snap. The breaking point came mid-November, frost silvering the stubble fields. I found the note on the fridge, Laura's doing, slipped under the door like a serpent's whisper. "Coffee tomorrow? For old times." El Fury boiled over. "You're going," I yelled when he walked in, waving the paper like a flag of surrender. He sighed, weary. "Just talk, Alex. Clear the air. She's got no claim here." But I saw the temptation, the escape hatch back to normalcy, to the straight life the town expected. Or maybe you miss it. The ease. Pretending. His face hardened, the shove from summer echoing in his stance. "Don't make this ugly." "I'm trying. Damn it for us. Trying." I laughed, bitter. "By coffee dating your ex?" While I sit here wondering if last night was pity or passion, the words flew, weapons in the war of insecurities. He advanced, voice low thunder. "You think this is easy? Loving you is tearing me in half the man I was, half the one I want to be." But hurt twisted to anger, and his hand shot out, not a shove this time, but a grip on my arm, bruising. "Back off, Alex. I need space." I wrenched free, storming out into the twilight, boots crunching frost. The fields stretched empty, mocking my solitude. Hours later, I returned to a dark house, his truck gone. Coffee with Laura. Then what? Betrayal. Round 2, the kind that shatters foundations. Curled on the couch, I waited, heart a hollow drum. Dawn broke without him, and with it, the realization. Love on the prairie wasn't just risky, it was a reckoning. The empty driveway mocked me as the sun climbed, casting long shadows over the porch where we'd shared our first tentative beers. Daniel's absence stretched like the barren fields after harvest. Vast, echoing, stripped bare. I paced the kitchen, phone in hand, thumb hovering over his number a dozen times before rage won out. Screw space, I thought, grabbing keys and gunning the old Chevy toward town. If he wanted to play house with ghosts, I'd drag him back kicking and screaming. Main Street in Harlan was a postcard of Americana gone sour. The diner with its greasy spoon charm, the barbershop where old-timers swapped lies about Nam and Nixon. I spotted his truck outside the Cozy Corner Cafe, that kitschy spot with gingham curtains and pie that could induce diabetes. Through the window, I saw them. Daniel hunched over coffee, Laura across from him, her hand on his like a claim stake. Laughter bubbled from her lips, light and inviting, and something in me fractured. I burst through the door, bell jangling like alarm, heads turning in that small-town slow motion. "Daniel!" My voice boomed, too loud, too raw. He startled, coffee sloshing, face paling as our eyes locked. "Alex, what the?" He stood, chair scraping, but Laura's hand lingered on his wrist, a subtle anchor. Family emergency, I lied through gritted teeth, ignoring her arched brow. Need you home. Now, she smiled. Saccharine. Go on, Dan. We'll catch up later. The promise in her tone twisted the knife deeper. The drive back was a minefield of silence, his knuckles white on the wheel, my own fury boiling over into accusations. What the hell was that? Old times? You two looked cozy as a Norman Rockwell painting. Jesus. Alex. It was coffee. She showed up, wanted to talk about selling her share of the old property. Dad's land. Remember. His voice rose, defensive, but guilt threaded through like chaff in wheat. Bullshit. I saw the way she touched you. The way you let her. Tears pricked hot, but I blinked them back, staring out at the passing silos. He pulled over abrupt on a gravel shoulder, truck shuddering to a halt. You don't get it. This us, it's new. Terrifying. Laura's safe. Familiar. No judgments. No whispers. His confession hung heavy. A punch to the gut. I'm not saying I want her. But damn it, Alex, I'm drowning here. I turned on him, voice breaking. Drowning? Try being the one who loved first. Who risked everything while you dipped a toe in and pulled back every time the water got deep. The dam burst then, words flooding out. Years of hidden hurts. The rejection in college. The isolation on the farm. The terror of loving a man who might never fully reciprocate. Daniel listened, face crumpling, and when I finished, he reached for me, tentative, then fierce. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. We clung there, roadside confessional, until his phone buzzed, Harlan, calling about some co-op meeting. He ignored it, but the outside world intruded anyway. Back home, we patched the peace with touches and truths, bodies mending what words had torn. But Laura's shadow lingered, a specter at our feasts. She texted him daily, innocent check-ins that escalated to invitations. Dinner in Topeka, a weekend at her sister's lake house. Daniel deleted them, but I saw the temptation. The pull of a life untainted by scandal. Winter clamped down hard, snow blanketing the fields in white forgiveness. We hunkered in, stoking fires and each other, carving out a fragile domesticity. Christmas came quiet, no tree, just strings of lights on the porch and a shared bottle of bourbon by the hearth. He gave me a leather-bound journal. For your stories, he said. Shy. I gave him a silver chain, simple, to wear under his shirt like a secret talisman. That night, making love slow by firelight, I whispered, I love you, and he echoed it back, first time, unprompted, like a vow. Spring thawed the ground and our guards, wheat sprouting tentative green. Work resumed, side by side, but harmony frayed at the seams. Town talk turned toxic. Tires slashed on my truck. Anonymous notes in the mailbox. Faggots don't farm. Daniel wanted to confront it head-on. March into the diner and set records straight. Let him talk. We're hazes, we built this land from nothing. But fear rooted deep in me. A weed choking the crop. Easy for you to say. You're the straight uncle. Remember, the one who gets pity nods. Me? I'm the punchline. Arguments flared like summer brushfires. Him pushing for openness. Me pulling for privacy. The old shove metaphor returned. Each clash a physical echo. Crisis crested in May. During planting, a late frost hit, blackening half the back 40 overnight. We worked dawn to dark, replanting what we could, exhaustion etching lines deeper on Daniel's face. One evening, as thunderheads gathered again, Laura appeared unannounced, pie in hand, excuses on lips. Heard about the frost. Thought you boys could use some comfort. Daniel thanked her polite, but I saw the flicker, gratitude, maybe more. After she left, I exploded. Comfort? From her? What's next? Dan. Moving her in while I sleep in the barn. He rounded on me, voice a whip. You're being paranoid. She's just being neighborly. Neighborly my ass. She's circling like a vulture, waiting for you to crack. The fight escalated. Words weaponized. My insecurities his fault. His confusion mine. In the heat, he shoved me, back against the kitchen wall. Not hard, but enough to stun. Stop pushing me away, he roared. But his hands stayed, pinning my shoulders, breaths mingling hot. Time suspended. Rage melted to recognition. The push wasn't rejection. It was desperation, a tether in the storm. Dan, I breathed, and he crashed into me, kiss bruising with apology. We stumbled to the floor, frantic, reclaiming what doubt had stolen. Afterward, tangled and spent, he murmured, no more hiding. I choose you. Every damn time, but choice has costs. The next day, Harlan cornered us at the co-op, Bible thumping about sodomites corrupting the soil. Daniel didn't back down, squared his shoulders, voice steady. Mind your own harvest, preacher. This land's big enough for all kinds of love. Gasps rippled, but he held my hand as we walked out, chin high. Word spread wildfire fast. Threats followed, lost contracts, vandalism, but so did allies. The widow Jenkins leaving pies with notes of support. A quiet nod from the feed store clerk. Daniel stood firm, but cracks showed in private, nights of tossing, whispers of what if we sell, start fresh in the city. I held him through it, whispering, roots run deep here. We weather it together. Yet as summer scorched the new wheat golden, I wondered if our gamble would yield bounty or barren regret. The wheat ripened under relentless July sun, heads bowing heavy as our secrets once had. Daniel and I moved through the days like a well-oiled machine, planting, tilling, tending not just the land, but each other. Mornings started with coffee kisses on the porch, his arm around my waist as we watched the horizon blush. Evenings ended in the loft, bodies slick with sweat, laughter mingling with moans under the rafters where Dad had once stored Christmas ornaments. We'd built something resilient, forged in frost and fire, but the world outside clawed at the edges, hungry for weakness. Laura's final play came sly as a fox in the henhouse. She drove up one sweltering afternoon, not with pie, but papers, legal docs fluttering like white flags of surrender. Dan, I want to buy you out, she announced, spreading them on the kitchen table. Full price. No haggling. We can both move on, me with a nest egg, you with whatever this is. Her eyes flicked to me, dismissive, then back to him, softening. Remember our life? Picnics by the creek, dreams of kids. It's not too late. Daniel's jaw tightened, fingers drumming the scarred oak. I hovered in the doorway, silent storm, heart-pounding betrayal's rhythm. This wasn't coffee. This was checkmate. Freedom wrapped in nostalgia, a straight path back to the man he'd been. He glanced at me, eyes pleading for understanding, then sighed. Laura, that life's gone. Buried with the boy I was. He pushed the papers back, gentle but firm. Appreciate the offer, but this farms my heart now. Our heart. The R landed like a gauntlet, and her face crumpled, hurt, then resolve. Fine. Your funeral. She gathered the docs, heels clicking sharp on the floorboards as she left. But as her tail lights faded, Daniel sagged against the counter, drained. She offered double market value. Alex. We could have been set new start. No stairs. I crossed to him, pulling him into my arms. This is our start. Stairs and all. We held each other there, the kitchen clock ticking like a heartbeat, until resolve hardened in his eyes. You're right. Damn it, you're always right. That night, we burned the papers in the fire pit, flames devouring the what-ifs, sparks rising like prayers. To us, he toasted with a beer, pulling me onto his lap, and we made love under the stars, the prairie vast and forgiving witness. But triumph's shadow is doubt, and harvest brought the reckoning. The combines roared again, wheat falling in golden swaths, but a mechanical failure midfield turned disaster. The header jammed catastrophic, belching smoke and sparks into the dry stalks. Fire bloomed fast, acres igniting, flames licking skyward like accusatory fingers. We fought it frantic, calling the volunteer fire department, beating back the blaze with wet burlap sacks, lungs searing with smoke. Daniel charged too close, a rogue gust shoving embers his way, his sleeve caught, fire racing up his arm. Dan! I screamed, tackling him to the dirt, rolling him until the flames died to char. Sirens wailed distant, but in that moment, it was just us, his skin blistered raw, my hands pressing his shoulder to stem the panic. The blaze contained to 10 acres, insurance would cover it, the adjuster said later, but Daniel's arm landed him in the ER overnight, grafts and bandages turning him fragile. I sat vigil by his bed in Salina General, holding his good hand, whispering nonsense about replanting come spring. Worth it, he murmured, morphine slurred. For you. For this. Townsfolk trickled in, not with pitchforks, but casseroles and quiet words. Harlan himself showed, hat in hand. Heard about the fire. Foolish pride got the best of me. Daniel's family, your family. If you need hands for the rebuild. He trailed off, awkward, but the olive branch gleamed. Daniel came home bandaged but unbroken, our bond tempered stronger in the forge. We replanted together, his arm in a sling, me guiding the cedar while he called shots from the shade of the cottonwood. Laughter returned, easy now, laced with the wisdom of scars. Fall brought bounty, the wheat rose resilient, yields surpassing the loss. At the co-op payout, Daniel stood tall, arm around my shoulders, facing the murmurs with a grin. Hayes boys did good this year, he announced, and cheers rippled, tentative, then genuine. Laura sent a card, proud of you. Both. No more circling. She'd found her own harvest elsewhere. Winter settled gentle, snow dusting the fields like lace. We decorated the tree proper this time, lights twinkling, ornaments from Mom's attic swaying. On Christmas Eve, by the fire, Daniel pulled a small box from his pocket, a ring, simple silver band etched with wheat stalks. Not legal. Not yet, he said, voice thick. But it's a promise. Marry me, Alex, here, where it started. Tears blurred my vision as I slid it on, pulling him close. Yes, 1,000 times. We made love slow, reverent, the ring catching firelight like a talisman. Spring unfurled green and hopeful, wheat greening the earth. The push that began it all, the shove into stalks, the spark of unspoken fire, had led here, two men, hands clasped, facing the horizon not as uncle and nephew, but partners, equals in love's vast field. Years later, we'd tell the story to our adopted son, a wide-eyed kid from the city foster system, over suppers of fresh-baked bread. Your dad's fought fires, literal and otherwise, Daniel would say, ruffling his hair. But love, that's the real crop. Grows back stronger every time. And as the prairie wind whispered through the wheat, I'd squeeze Daniel's hand, speechless still at the miracle we'd harvested from the dirt.